Welcome everyone to the third graduation call for OLS 3, which is the third cohort of the Open Science Training and Mentoring Program. So today we have a really big call. Most of our graduates are registered for this call, so it will be longer than the last two. But the general format will be everyone gets up to 5 minutes to present, talk about what they've learned, where they're taking their projects what they've learned over the last 16 weeks and where they hope they'll be going in the future. For the calls, I will have my phone doing a timer, and if at any point I think we are at running over, I will unmute and it will start singing to you, at which point we will ask you to politely wrap up. I will also do some of the quick pre-kickoff things at the minute. So as a reminder, Open Life Science has a code of conduct as a general rule. That means treat one another with respect and the way that you would like to be treated when you're interacting with people in the Open Life Science community, whether that's on a call or Slack or anywhere else. If you need to report anything that you believe hasn't been in line with the code of conduct, you can report by emailing team@openlifesci.org, which reaches myself, Berenice, Malvika, and Emmy, or you can email any of us individually. All of this information is in the document at line 17 to 20. We also have otter.ai for the transcription so that you can follow along by reading what's being said. I'm just going to post that in YouTube in a minute as well, but that's available also in our chat. And I think that is everything from the intros. No one's saying, yo, you forgot anything, so hopefully I didn't. So without any further ado, we're going to start in the order of the project presentations on Etherpad. So first of all, on the list, we have Jennifer Miller talking about when postdocs go to court, an empirical legal research open notebook. Jennifer, are you ready? Looking good.
Greetings, fellow graduates, program facilitators, and our most welcome guests. I'm Jennifer Miller, an independent scholar working on open knowledge projects in North Carolina, United States. This project, When Postdocs Go to Court, used methods from open notebook science and empirical legal research to create an open data set to study how postdocs interact with the US legal system. First, what do we mean by postdoc? The National Postdoctoral Association says a postdoctoral scholar, or postdoc, is an individual holding a doctoral degree who's engaged in a temporary period of mentored research or training for the purpose of acquiring the professional skills needed for a career path of his or her choosing. In the US, there are more than 60,000 postdocs. Over 50% of these are immigrants on temporary visas. And about 30%, or 20,000 people, of these postdocs work in the life sciences. And these data come from the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. In the US, documents created by the federal government are generally in the public domain. This includes opinions published by federal courts. These opinions often contain detailed court transcripts. By analyzing these documents, we can learn about postdocs' working conditions. For example, we can ask, are postdocs employees or are they students? The first passage refers to employment 3 times: employment agreement, terms of employment, employment relationship. In contrast, the second passage, which comes from a different case, contrasts persons on the job with holders of fellowships. During the Mozilla OLS program, we created an open database, Postdoc Legal 1.0. It contains 120 public domain documents ready for analysis or use in teaching. We include several metadata elements to clearly identify the documents. During the program, we also refined our project management approach and documented our progress in a few GitHub Wiki blog posts. Next steps for the project are to find a home for the database and complete our remaining tasks, especially related to writing and analyzing data. One of my team members may also apply to a future cohort of Mozilla OLS to carry the work forward. I want to warmly express gratitude for the dedicated work of my fellow project team members, Adriana Bankston and Melania Abrahamian. I also want to thank all of those involved with the leadership of this cohort, especially our project mentor, Beth Duckles. This project builds on the 2013 conference paper listed here, and I'm grateful to have it out of the file drawer and into the open.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Can we have a huge round of applause for Jennifer? And you managed to keep it under time and everything, which is beautiful on a call like today. With that, everyone, please keep your comments, your questions coming in on the document. There is space to add those in the Etherpad. We'll make sure the Etherpad link is available for the YouTube viewers as well. But we won't have time to go into the questions, so I'll request that hosts always actually go through and try and answer them in the document while we're going. Next up, I have Carla. It looks like you are next on the list.
Yes, I am. Let me just find the presentation, which is definitely not this, but this one. Okay. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. So hi, everyone. I'm Carlo Lancelotti, and together with Javier Ruiz Perez, who should be in the audience, and Marco Madella, who is in the same building as me, but probably not in the audience. I'm going to explain to you our project for the Open Life Science Perseverance cohort, which is titled Towards Fairer Phytoliths Data, or for friends, Fair Phytoliths Project. So first of all, what are phytoliths? Because you might not be familiar with this. Phytoliths are small silica, biogenic silica particles that are found inside plants and are vastly used in archaeology, paleoenvironment reconstructions, geochemistry, silicon cycle studies, etc., because they represent very well the plants where they formed. And there's an international phytolith societies who's working towards some data integration and standardization, which is represented mainly by the attempt to create an international code for phytolith nomenclature. But as a study from our OLS mentor, Emma Karune, found out recently, only half of the publications on phytoliths in any realm or in any topics of science that use phytoliths share some form of data. And the majority of this data is not reusable. So what we set up to do in the OLS program was to start creating a community of open phytoliths and make phytoliths more fair. So as you all know by now, fair, find findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. The aims that we expected to achieve during this program were to create a community survey within the phytolith community to understand how phytolith researchers perceive open practices, and then start creating the FAIR phytolith community. So open the repository on GitHub, design the web page, and maybe a bit too much for the OLS program. We also wanted to create a protocol for phytolith data publication and sharing, which we didn't achieve completely, but we started. So we're very happy about that. First, as I was saying, was to create a survey. And we did that. The survey is in two main parts. The first one is totally anonymous and open, and it's about fair practices. I'll show you a little bit more later. And the second one is non-anonymous, and it basically asks people if they want to contribute, and how they want to contribute to make phytoliths fair and open. And we launched the survey officially yesterday or the day before yesterday, and we already have 7 responses, so not that many, but we can share them with you at least as a preliminary idea of what's going on. So in the first part of the survey, we were asking questions such as, have you ever published gold open access? Have you ever published a preprint? Do you publish data in your paper? And if so, how? And I just want to show you here an example of what happens in the community. Out of the 6 responses, 100% of people said they've never published a preprint, and some of them said because they were afraid of plagiarism, others because they didn't know that this opportunity existed. But the good news is out of 7 responses, 100% said, yes, I want to help and I want to be involved in making phytoliths fairer. So we are very happy about how this is starting. The second task was to create a GitHub repository for collaborative work, and we did so with all the main sections that are expected into a collaborative repository: the README, the license, the roadmap, etc. We also put up some additional sections like our application for funding and dissemination materials, and instructions for people who want to become part of this initiative. And then we started obviously disseminating the initiative, because we need people to come on board. So we created a website through GitHub, and we opened a Twitter account. That's basically our main way of recruiting people for the survey right now. And we're very happy, because in a few days, the Twitter account gained quite a few followers. And it's actually already up to almost 90 right now. So it's very good. And finally, future step. First of all, a very good news. We got some funding from EOSC Life to carry on with this project and initiative. So we are going to make the community even more open and welcoming by translating the web page. And then in terms of research, we're going to circulate the survey and analyze the data. We are going to assess published data sets of phytoliths data sets from Europe and South America, in order to understand how data are shared and what we can improve. And then we're going to design a protocol for data sharing. Basically, what we're going to do is try to make our community grow and thrive. And eventually, as a very, very future step, we would like to try and create some infrastructure, like a repository for sharing fair phytoliths data. And that's it. We want to thank warmly a lot of people, all the organizer of the OLS3 mentoring program, all our fellow participants, and especially Emma, our great mentor and a fellow researcher, and Esther, who gave good tips on the survey, and well, anyone else really. Thanks.
Fantastic. Can we have a huge round of applause, everyone? Awesome. Okay. We are moving on. And folks, just for clarification, we are using the project order, which is under the project presentation section of the notes. So next up, we have Irene.
Can you see my presentation now?
We can. Do you want to try present mode?
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay.
5 minutes starts now.
Thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is Irene Ramos and my project is Skills for Open Agrobiodiversity Data. I work at Conavio, which is a governmental agency that funds and coordinates biodiversity data collection in Mexico. Right now, we're building an information system for agricultural biodiversity. So our focus is on cultivated plants in traditional agriculture. There are several teams of early career and student researchers who are doing field data collection across the country. There are two important features of agrobiodiversity. The first is that besides a biological and geographical component, it also has a social and cultural component. So for example, we are collecting data on local donors and also on uses and common names of plants. The second feature is that a lot of this information is collected with indigenous communities. One of the problems we face is that data are not reused by the people who are collecting the data. And a few reasons for this are that our contributors are not trained in open practices, and there are few resources for learning about open data in Spanish, especially resources that consider the special features of agrobiodiversity data. The solution that I proposed is to design a workshop on data literacy skills that encourages participants to become users of data apart from being collectors, and that increases their awareness of open data as a collaborative effort. In the medium term, I also hope that this workshop shows how we can provide incentives for open practices as a funding institution. My main focus during the program has been planning the workshop, and I've tried to apply the principles of open by design and active learning. This means that there is a combination of lectures and activities where participants can reflect and can link the new concepts with their previous knowledge and also share their experiences. So I show here an example of one of the sessions. Some topics for the workshop include open data, FAIR principles, the data lifecycle, and ethical data use. I'm still preparing materials, and I expect to give these workshops sometime in June or July. So during planning, I also had to start conversations with my supervisors to show the need for this training. They have been very supportive, and we together realized that our own team at Conavio could also benefit from this training. So I am already planning to give an internal workshop with our colleagues. I've also learned that to advocate effectively for open science, it's very helpful to work at different levels. Advocacy through training, as I am trying to do with the workshops, is an example of combining bottom-up and top-down approaches. So that means that I am working with our contributors, but I am also having conversations with people at higher levels in the administrations who are responsible for funding and for making choices. The OLS program has inspired me to think about data management as community management. As I mentioned, one of the goals of the workshops is to strengthen the participation in our information system. This is very important for us because we want to make sure that our information system is sustainable in the long term. So we need to take a community approach instead of focusing only on the technical side of data management. And I've learned a lot about how to apply open by design principles to our work. So finally, I want to thank my mentor, Viv Gopalasingham, the expert we consulted with, Marco Crestancio, Metadocencia, because they provide training for giving online teaching workshops, and the OLS organizers and my team at Conavio.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Everyone, can we have your sparkle hands and reaction emojis? Amazing. Okay. Right. Thank you. We are just going to move straight on. Keep those questions and comments coming in on the Etherpad, my friends. Fabien, we have you next.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah, so I am Fabienne. I am a physician scientist at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, and I am a pathologist and the founder and the project lead of the MySet, which stands for Minimum Set of Research Flow Cytometry Standards, where publishing reproducible data starts. So this is trying to tackle the problem that up to 90% of published scientific articles are not reproducible. And this is partly because metrics to determine data quality are either outdated, rarely used, or not enforced. And also because peer review incentives to change poor practices do not exist, or again, are not enforced. And we are using flow cytometry, which is a experimental technique or an instrumentation that is frequently used in the lab, both in the research lab, but also in the clinical space as a proof of principle for our approach. You can imagine that the cost of irreproducibility is huge. There is, of course, a direct cost relating to equipment, space. You have to pay people, you have to pay for reagents, you have to pay for materials. And if something isn't reproducible, that can add up to a lot of dollar signs. But then there's also the indirect cost. You're losing time, you look at the literature, you try to inform this for your own work. So science building on non-valid science. And then now I think with COVID, what we also as scientists have to be very much aware of is the credibility and trust that we have, or well, rather don't have, and not being reproducible certainly doesn't help the matter. And then from my perspective as a physician, this is also where patient safety comes in, because a lot of your biomedical basic science paves or is the foundation for translational science that ultimately gets translated into something for patient care. So our solution to this is to facilitate the peer review process by creating a tool, the MySet tool, that automatically reads your experimental information from all stages of your experiment, translates your experimental information into a quality score, and this quality score then communicates how well the best practices are followed. And this ultimately benefits journals, editors, reviewers, scientists, and the readers. So we are building our tool on a very data and community-driven approach, starting with review of existing best practices, surveying the community, building a prototype tool, and then moving on to beta testing. And you can see that the blue parts of the circle have been in progress since 2019 with building our group, building a website, having an initial publication about what we're doing, launching the survey, presenting the survey at a conference abstract, doing data analysis for the survey, and also incubating this project in the Harvard Innovation Lab incubator. However, coming into OLS has been really critical for us, because at this point we had a huge unmet need for skills and resources. And what I mean by that is, well, we had to learn that it's good to have friends in flow, but it's actually much better to have friends in open science. We had been trying for a very long time to get the approval stamp of our official flow cytometry society, which has not been given for various reasons. And we actually realized that in order to get the skill set, the support, and the allies that we need to move forward, we need to look into the open science space. So where we are now is, unfortunately, I personally have to hibernate the project because I am going into a hematopathology fellowship next week. So we are actually trying to partner up with you guys. And one of the people that is going to be our main partner, I'm not sure if he's on the call, is Jackson, who is a software engineer here at Boston University. And what we really want to do is pass on the pipeline that we have built in order to create that tool to others who are interested in best practices. And then Jackson building a tool that actually does the reading. And our vision is that together we could apply the I in FAIR and make what we have created so far interoperable and available to other groups that are trying to standardize this. And with this, I just want to say thank you, huge thank you to all the organizers, but also predominantly to Malvika, who's been our very, very patient and supportive mentor, and Sunika, and also for Samuel for having chats with me and just telling me about coding and what is really happening. And then, of course, to Jackson. And that is the end for me. Thank you.
Glorious. And once again, we want a beautiful show of hands, my friends. Emoji reactions is the other choice. Don't have to have your camera on. Okay, folks, for the next one, we will not be recording. So my recommendation, if you're watching on YouTube, stretch your legs, go get a coffee, bio break, a cookie, come back in 5 minutes, then we will be streaming again. So I'm going to turn that streaming off, and it